Welcome to UTOKing with Gregg. I am joined today by Iris Stammberger. I am extremely excited about connecting with Iris today. I learned of Iris' work on the Wisdom Project and the wisdom that she brings to problem solving through Voices of Reiki, as a lot of my connections. I saw her pop up there. She has connections with Rick Rapetti. And then Iris joined me for the Now UTOKing workshop where we got to know each other and I got to learn more about her wisdom. And I wanted to learn more. She's going to come to the UTOK circle and share both some theory and practice in the upcoming month, and is here joining us on UTOKing. Iris, so lovely to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for the opportunity to share what is behind the Wisdom Project and what is that we hope to achieve through the Wisdom Project.
Great. I'm really looking forward to that. So why don't we just start, though, a little bit about your background and how you got there, and then we can get into the Wisdom Project.
Okay. I'm an engineer, an electrical engineer from Venezuela. Mm-hmm. And I have been working with systems because my specialty is a 5-year degree. Is in control of systems control. So my thesis was to simulate a tower to create gasoline, using mathematical models to simulate a real system in the world. And then I got a job at a national utility, and then my work was also to simulate using different models, mathematical models, what was happening in the system. And slowly, without really noticing it, after I quit the utility, I started working with 2 consulting companies and moved from the real simulation of systems to working with organizational systems.
Ah, okay.
It was like a transition that I didn't plan, but it happened. And so I opened my own company, my own consulting firm with Tamara, who went to high school and college with me. And we became pretty, I would say successful, working with oil companies, utilities, transportation companies, doing what now is called, or what is called, change management. How can you take a team, an organization from this point to this point, or how can they move so they can deliver in the particular problem or project that they are managing? But then I started finding a lot of psychological issues. Because, just calling it resistance to change is not enough. And then the field of change management, because it's based, I don't know, it has the same fragmentary problem that psychology has, that you have identified too. It's just a bunch of tools and techniques and methods. And then what is the philosophy, the foundation of this? So anyway, I decided to study psychology and engineering, studying psychology, because, my team, one day I had a client, it was a repetitive client, and I started getting scared that what they were going to learn, what we were learning about the organization was not going to please the leaders.
Ah, okay.
So, because on my own, I was having problems with my business partner because the company was growing, and, we had to really organize the power structure. We were working with a psychologist. And he was an expert in Gestalt psychotherapy. So one day I said, I invited him to help me present to this powerful and difficult client our results. And what happened was magical, because as soon as you change, let's call it the furniture, as soon as you start seating people in different places, as soon as people have the opportunity to see themselves in the act, the frame changes.
That's right.
So it's not so much what the consultant has to say vis-a-vis facts, is that you start taking the perspective that the consultant is bringing. So I started doing that more and more and more in my organizational consulting work, in my work as a management consultant, but I had no clue of psychology. So the opportunity came to move from Venezuela to Boston. And so I did 3 degrees in psychology.
All right, but yeah, just fast forward through the 3 degrees in psychology.
The first one was in family therapy.
You
know, I master's in counseling psychology, but my specialty, and I worked as a family therapist because family therapists focus on the group.
Totally.
They don't want to have one patient. They say the patient is the symptom of the dysfunctionality of the group. And
did you bring a particular, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, did you bring a particular frame, a family therapy frame that did you find particularly useful?
Yes, I was going to just say that because I can see your tree behind. And I have been a fan of Humberto Maturana's Tree of Knowledge.
Yes. Okay.
And the idea that the mind is embodied. And that you know, that thinking of the mind as something that happens in the brain, that is abstract, like the Cartesian model. He broke with that. And in South America, I don't know why, well, perhaps because he's from South America, and he and Francisco Varela are from South America. It's very present. So anyway, I was using his models, his understanding of the mind, tried to find that in psychology, couldn't but found it in family therapy, because there is a movement within family therapy that sees the mind as autopoietic, self-creating, which is what Maturana framework of the Tree of Knowledge.
Absolutely.
So I worked for a while as a family therapist, but I'm not made, I don't know, it's very difficult to work with families in crisis. And I'm an engineer at heart. So I decided to go for a PhD, and I did a PhD with Daniel Dennett, the philosopher, and David Feldman, the cognitive developmental psychology. Tufts University has this wonderful program called interdisciplinary PhD, where basically you have to craft your program and convince 3 professors from 3 different departments to support. It's very challenging, but I did it.
Congratulations.
And then after I finished, I also got a degree in human-computer interaction.
Really?
Because, and you will see when I tell you what I do, designing, it's at the core of the work I do. How do I design an organizational system? How do I design a system, a team? How do I design my own life in ways that create the good? And in human-computer interaction, not so much 15 years ago when I went to the through the human-computer interaction program at Tufts after finishing my PhD, there was not so much I would say knowledge as we have today, but one of the pioneers of the field, the cognitive psychologist and designer, Donald Norman. He has moved from trying to specify how an interface should be designed, which is how they started, you know, the interface between the human and the technology, to understanding that what we are basically designing is systems. You know, I call them, psychologists call them cognitive systems, but Don Norman also calls them, and many people call them, socio-technical systems. And there is a whole body of knowledge where people think how to design a system, an organizational system, a community system, a school, how to design the interactions so both systems function optimally. And the lesson that people are getting is that it's not possible to optimize. We can only satisfy. We can only, you know, because if you optimize the human system within the socio-technical system, or if you optimize the technology system, cannot, one of those two things can collide. So it has to be a dual focus, both the human and the technology, in a joint satisfying of what needs to be satisfied.
Okay.
And the guide for doing that is to have a goal. These socio-technical systems have goals. And that's what is behind the Wisdom Project. Let's be wise, but with a goal.
Right.
Let's cultivate wisdom, but with a goal.
Lovely.
And when I go to an organization, I don't go there to teach them anything. They are busy professionals with busy lives, but they have a problem and they want to improve in the way they address the problem. So there is a goal.
That's the goal. Wow, that's a pretty...
Again, an engineer and a designer of socio-technical systems.
All right. Lovely. And what a rich history you have educationally in the electrical systems engineering, and then in the marriage and family systems thinking, and then in interdisciplinary cognitive science and a human factors engineering. Wow.
Yeah, it seems like sometimes almost like embarrassing because, oh, this woman is doing, it's like, but I had a guide. My guide is the systems approach. And how to use the systems approach to reach particular goals.
Well, one of the things that strikes in me is just how important your knowledge set is for us right now, more than ever. So if I just take a second here and just do a little UTOKing about this and why. So from my vantage point, we're living in a kairotic moment, meaning a very important moment in history. Okay. If we take the tree of knowledge lens from material objects to living organisms to minded animals to cultured persons, okay, we can see that there are these leveling dimensional jumps from matter to life to mind to culture, right? And each one of those is associated with an information processing communication network, okay? So you get genes in cells, you get neural networks in animals, you get language in humans building social justified groups and culture person dynamics. And now what we've got is this, our technologies and our justification systems were evolving, but pretty independent. We started writing, that pulls them together some. We start the printing press, that pulls them together, artificial intelligence, internet, and now ultimately we've got chatbot, right? And what's only going to happen is more of the digital social tech interfacing with the culture person plane, right? And this management of this, the wise management of this technology human interface is at a macroscopic level one of the great core problems I think we face in the 21st century. So I'll just say that and then reflect on what are you doing and what your journey is taking you. And I would say, it seems to me, Iris, that you're just right on that arc, right? You're right on that interface. And that's a really just important reflection. And this question about how we are going to be evolving with this digital social tech interface is absolutely at a macroscopic, big picture, central problem. Unbelievable. So let's listen to your wisdom, given that is the time we find ourselves in.
Yeah, I used to feel a little sad that the only two psychologists who got a Nobel Prize, Herbert Simon and Daniel Kahneman, did it highlighting the limitations of our biological brains. Because Herb Simon basically said we cannot optimize, brains do not optimize, we only satisfy. We just try to find a solution that accommodates the goal of the moment, and that's it. And he was right. And economists play with that idea and prove that he was right, and therefore he got, acknowledged and got a Nobel Prize. And Daniel Kahneman is about the limitations of our cognitive system and how we have so many cognitive biases and how we don't see what is in front of us. And again, he won a Nobel Prize and he deserves it, but it's not depressing. It's not a positive thing. Instead, in the human factors engineering or human factors psychology field, in the design field, we don't see the brain as we don't see mind as the brain.
Right.
The mind is absolutely connected with the language that I learned from my parents, the customs of my native culture in South America,
Yep.
the multiple educational opportunities that I have had. So basically, I am what Andy Clark, the philosopher and cognitive scientist, called a cyborg. So it's minds are made of all these things. And if, for instance, I have lived in the Boston area for more than 20 years, and I love it, and I feel part of the community, but suddenly something happens that reminds me that this is not my home, that I'm not very stupid little things, like somebody getting into the house of a character in a movie unannounced, and that's so weird. I used to do that when I came to the States, but it's so inappropriate in America. You have to call first. You have to plan. Stupid little things. And then the frame breaks. You are seeing the movie, and suddenly somebody comes unannounced. And I am reminded that the cognitive system that I am, the social technical system that I am, has a different machinery that the one that is developed in this culture. Or you see, again, a father talking with a child, or a child telling you what he's reading in high school, and you cannot connect because the books I read are different.
Right.
So I have this list of things that I have to do and I never do, like watching Star Trek and reading Harry Potter and all those things that are not my culture. And it makes it difficult to connect, you see?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so what do I have to say about the crisis of the moment? Yes. But we have solved them before. Plato was against writing because his argument was it's going to diminish our ability to memorize things. And he was right. But look, all the good things that writing has done. The same happens with the printing press that you mentioned. So I believe that we will be able, like as we have done with the nuclear bomb, to manage all these technologies. But of course, you know, the risk is that to go from here to there, there's going to be a horrible transition that we don't want to create, but it could happen. So I'm optimistic. And in my work, I go locally, very modest. And I mentioned Donald Norman at the beginning of our conversation because he has been presenting different principles of design, how to design human-machine systems. Those principles are not followed by Facebook or Twitter. I believe they are still in a germinal phase in the field. Okay. But those principles is, first, let me see, let me read them. I don't want to. As I said at the beginning, practice dual focus, focus on the design of the human, focus on the design of the machine, the technology, the technique.
Right. Think of the system.
And then work in joint design, but also
interfacing system.
Pay attention to the people. What is that people want? If you want to design something, try to understand. And this is an iterative process. You have to do it over and over until getting to the answer. Another principle of his is problems right now are what it's called, you know, by him and by many other people, wicked. WICKED problems. Wicked problems are that are very difficult to formulate, to grasp, that once you try to approach it this way, something else happens. And that when you reach a solution, it could be only a temporary solution.
Right.
So be modest in your aims, knowing that the problem that you are trying to solve, sustainability, loneliness, depression, equity in education, whatever problem, these big, massive problems we have are wicked.
Okay.
Are
Good.
wicked problems. They are not linearly causal problems.
Right.
That's extremely important. And I believe, even though the concept of wicked problems has been around like for 50 years, we still are learning how to manage those.
Okay.
Another principle of Dan and that I follow, that Don Norman, is that everything is a system. So don't try to think that you capture like that. For me, psychotherapy is a frustrating, for me, because the person that sits in front of you, Gregg, is bringing whatever perspective he or she has of a situation, and it brings it over and over and over, week after week, perhaps not capturing what's happening and therefore not allowing the therapist to really support and help for a transformation, support a transformation. That's why I like family therapists. And perhaps it's a professional bias because I work with groups.
Right, sure. Yeah.
And when you are in the group, you realize that, and it happens to you, I guess, and it happens to me that when I change groups, I can see things about myself that I didn't see before.
Totally.
So,
and along those lines, as a therapist, I will certainly adopt various forms of internal family systems. So where I see me as a complicated system of many, many different things, and I'll use my lensing to see what kind of voices and modes and nodes are operating in me, and how those nodes are getting along is definitely a frame I bring to bear. So I certainly take the individual and divide them up into the various elements.
And you have in your different models, you have a way of doing that. You have considered that limitation of the one-on-one interaction in the psychotherapy room. Yes, I know that. Okay, so joint and dual design, understanding that the problem is wicked, that is not an easy solution. Third, understand that everything is a system, that everything is connected to everything else. So don't try to say, okay, I frame the problem and that's it. And finally, create small and simple interventions.
Okay.
When you create small and simple interventions, you have the opportunity to see what's happening and correct. Those 4 principles he is trying to apply to these big problems that you mentioned. I believe, as I said, that it's incipient, the application of design principles into these huge problems. And what I do in my own work and at the Wisdom Project is to do it locally with personal problems, which, anxiety, depression, loneliness, what Verbicki calls the meaning crisis. Those are huge, huge burdens, huge, wicked problems in people's lives.
Absolutely.
The need to launch or change the culture of an organization is a wicked problem. So I focus on smaller problems than the ones that you mentioned, the big climate change or sustainability issues. I focus on local, I would call it them, problems.
Yes, that's wonderful. So let's move into that then. You've built this thing called the Wisdom Project, and you consult along those lines. So take us into the philosophy and theory backdrop of that, please.
Okay. In management science, there is a movement that have come from different industries, from the manufacturing industry, from the software industry, from the technology industry, meaning the technology industry that builds applications that are going to be used by the consumers globally. There is this growing movement of how it is that we do. what is in the work we do. And it has created different mindsets, they are called. One is called, I already mentioned it, the systems mindset, the systems thinking mindset, where you have to try to remember all the time that even if you are working in a particular area, you have to relate that part to a whole and be aware of that, because the problems are wicked.
Okay.
But also, another one is called the lean management mindset, or the lean thinking mindset, LEAN, and that came from manufacturing cars and the idea of letting the workers have a voice and allowing the workers at the moment improve a process. And Toyota was the pioneer, and therefore, they took over the market, and now everybody does it. But they are at the root of the fact that now you can buy a new car and they give you a 10-year warranty with 100,000 K of gas. This is amazing. I have to buy a new car, and I'm like, what? So there is the systems thinking mindset, the lean thinking, how to generate something, a product without waste. And then there is another one called the agile mindset.
Right.
And agile mindset is what I said that Don Norman is including his principles. Test quickly, create a prototype of a solution and see if it works. It started with designing interfaces for users, and that's what Don Norman did many years ago. But now it's everywhere. Like the software industry used to invest 95% of the money in repairing bugs. You see, so now instead of just creating a big program and trying to test it at the end, they just create little things and try. So systems thinking, lean thinking, agile thinking have taken the whole management industry. They're everywhere.
Right.
I used to talk about this, and I had to explain it to people, but now I'm networking, I'm at a meeting, and any VP or the CEO of a startup here in the Boston area, oh yes, I know, lean management, system thinking. And the other one, the other one that is agile, the other one that is more recent is called design thinking, and it's related to what Don Norman does, the science of design. But it's very limited in the sense that they focus mainly on the ideation process. How do I get an idea out of the ground? Why? Because it was generated by a company, IDEO, which does basically that. So these four mindsets are at the root of the work of people like me who work with organizations as management consultants, offering change management, how to go from here to here. And that's at the root, of the Wisdom Project, because that's what I have been doing for many years. With different companies, with universities, with research institutions, etc., etc. When you do that work, I have a bunch of tools, methods, techniques, and people call them participatory technologies. So those are tools and techniques to change whole systems, to change whole socio-technical systems. And that's what I use. So now let's move to the COVID and the fact that I couldn't work. And that I couldn't do all the networking and all the running workshops that I do. And so I had time in my hands. And I found the work of John Vervaeke. And I found your work because I couldn't understand John's 4 Ps and 3 Rs until I read your blog. You had an article about John's the 4 levels of four types of knowing. Participatory, perspectival, procedural, and propositional. And the recurrent relevant realizations, the 4 Ps and 3 Rs, and you explain it so beautifully in that blog. So I took the opportunity of not being able to work to see if I could apply what I have been doing for so many years in another environment. Because for me, to do my work, I had to go to a company and convince somebody to hire me as a consultant.
Right.
You know, it's a different process.
Yep.
So I thought, perhaps I can do this one-on-one. Perhaps I can. Well, I wasn't sure how to do it, but well, I was exploring.
Right.
And then I found this work that John does and the way he approaches wisdom. So I decided to wait because there is another big name that surely you know, Robert Sternberg, who was the pioneer in psychology in the study of wisdom. And I was waiting in December.
And I co-authored an article together on unified professional psychology.
Ah, okay. All right.
But yes, I know Bob.
Yeah. So anyway, I was expecting in December 2021, he was going to publish a handbook of wisdom research. And I was expecting to see John Vervaeke's work there. And I didn't. Because I was like, I was waiting for the approval. He's a big name. He was the president of the American Psychological Association. Oh, I think he was a dean at Tufts too. So, I was like, okay, now let's do it. Let's just do it. And then it was not there. It was, the same, every psychologist, every researcher has a theory or hypothesis, does an experiment or a study and writes a paper and proposes a model. The same fragmentation, Gregg, that you have been complaining and talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, wow. So I decided to do it on my own. And that's the Wisdom Project. Okay, so I don't have like the blessing of how to approach wisdom. I'm not a theoretician or a philosopher. I'm a management consultant. I do applied cognitive science. That's what I do. I apply. But since, the book really, I was like, like a little girl, a little kid waiting for the next video game. And then the book came and it was December and it was dated 2022, but I got it in December 2021. And John Vervaeke and Igor Grossman and Monique Ardell and all these people that are doing this incredible work, trying to unify, like you do, Gregg, the understanding of wisdom were not there. So I said, you know what? I'm taking things on my hands.
Okay.
And I'm going to do my own application, even though...
Go forward, Iris.
And then I started the Wisdom Project based on what I have learned reading John and reading Igor Grossman and Monique Ardell and all these people. And when I was in the middle of my first program, I called John, and then I had the interview where you had the opportunity to see me working. And right now, that was April 2022, and I have done so far 11 cohorts, 11 groups, taking the Wisdom Project foundational program, which is a 7-week long online. And right now I'm writing a book, which is basically a guidebook. It's an engineering handbook. Step 1, step 2, step 3.
Get to the goal.
Exactly, get to the goal. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Because the people who come to the Wisdom Project, they have projects on their own. They have a guy in Bulgaria wants to create, and he already started, a community center. A guy in Romania wants to develop a program for people with addictions, a place where he has been working for years, that doesn't focus on the AA model, the total abstention model.
Alcoholic Anonymous.
Alcoholic Anonymous. A woman in Dallas is applying the Wisdom Project to her own project. She runs a nonviolent communication nonprofit. And she sees a lot of value on, the idea of a system that has a goal. And therefore, everything that the system does is towards that goal. So that's what's happening in June. I will start a new series of cohorts. I am putting, with Creative Commons license, the content of the foundational course online, like a course to take online.
Right.
And creating a longer program that is going to be 9 months long. I will start it in January of 2024 for people who really want to do exactly what I'm doing.
Okay.
So like I'm going to train the trainers.
Right.
I'm going to offer all the materials, and then I'm going to train the trainers, which is something I have done in the past. I have created programs where I train trainers so they can deliver the same product that I have created. In this case, the foundational training of the Wisdom Project.
Lovely. All right. Well, that gives us a good sense of the infrastructure and some of the things that you've laid down over the last year and a half or whatnot. Maybe you can share some of the, what is the Wisdom Project? What are the kinds of steps that you share, or what are the core ideas that guide it, or both of those things or more?
Okay. For many years, I was working with a concept of mine called, and I shouldn't say of mine, a concept of mine, the management of learning, how it is that professionals manage learning. Because the sure thing for a consultant to fail is not to understand the frame that the client is coming from.
Okay.
The client has a frame that has been internalized through past experiences. And if as a consultant, you don't try to somehow identify the frame, it doesn't matter what facts you offer them.
Right.
It doesn't matter they have a frame.
Right.
And that's what I learned when I brought Gestalt techniques to that difficult client so many years ago. Right. By sitting them in the room in a different place, they were able to change perspectives.
Right.
So,
like John, that of course, that's the relevance frame, the implicit relevance frame that's going to detect what the person's going to try to realize, and everything else will go out if we put it in John's frame of reference.
Exactly. So imagine me doing my work without a theoretical understanding of it, because there was not a frame. So as soon as I found John's work, it's like, oh my gosh, this is, and you said it in one conversation with him. Thank you, John, for offering me the concepts to understand the things I do, or to understand. You said something like that in one conversation with him a long time ago. And that's the way I felt. I have been doing these things and I didn't have a theoretical foundation. But I had the practice, and I have been doing this. So I called it the management of learning, inviting experts to be metacognitive about their own decision-making processes. Basically, inviting them to review their frame, their understanding of what George Lakoff calls the frame, that, you are totally impervious to facts because the frame doesn't allow you to accept the facts. So basically, I created those management of learning programs. I was really successful because by accident, I was able to sign with a Harvard affiliate that helps universities in Latin America. So anyway, for 7 years, we traveled to many countries, and I was able to create programs that reached, the last time I made a count, 5,000 professors, because we worked with universities that were trying to change the teaching on the stage model, that were trying to include technologies, that were trying to implement project-based learning or problem-based learning. So the management of learning as a concept that I put together to guide me through what I was doing was very, very helpful. And gave me the opportunity to train trainers, because all these people who were using the framework were not trained by me. They were trainees of me who knew how to implement and replicate whatever I was doing. So anyway, a few years back, I decided to not travel so much, because you have to travel a lot. And they want you to stay 3 months in Chile. it's nice, but 3 months is a long time, and I'm married.
It's a long time.
And,
Totally.
and I like my house, and
Right.
or 2 months in Albania. So I was
Mhm.
traveling a lot, and I decided
Okay.
to stay in Boston and started developing clients in the startup biotech world here in Boston. But always with this concept, how experts manage their own learning, which the answer is they don't. They have these frames, and they are basically fossilized in their ability. Not all, but it's very, and you know it in psychology. It's like,
Of course.
you present a new theory, you go to a conference, and everybody's just focused on their framework. So, what you are doing with the circle and everything is very valuable. Because you see that you feel, you sense, you live the problem of the fragmentation and the lack of communication. So anyway, I was doing the management of learning. I was doing what I call it. It's called participatory technologies to change systems. And then I discovered John's Verwicki approach to the development of wisdom, that intelligence, that rationality is intelligence working on itself to improve intelligence, and that wisdom is rationality working on rationality to improve itself. It's just so beautiful, the concept of relevant. So I understood in a new light the work that I have been doing, but I don't share that with the participants in my program. Because basically I served what I call the LinkedIn crowd.
Right. Okay.
So people who are in professionals who are in LinkedIn, who perhaps have a PhD in math or bioscience or whatever, but they are not interested in understanding what is beneath this framework. So the Wisdom Project is basically an experience where people present a project of their own.
Okay.
As I said, it could be creating a community center or improving the relationship with a child, with a adult child, or could be, there was a pastor in one of the cohorts that has 4 kids, 80 families in her parish, and 0 time for herself. So her project was to create a space to cultivate herself as a human being. So you can have any project, and then you work these projects during 7 sessions, 1 weekly, with different mind tools. I don't like to call the mind tools psychotechnologies, which is great. I love that Verwicki does that, but I use some technologies of participation or technologies of observation that perhaps don't deserve the name of psychotechnology.
Okay.
I don't know. You know, appreciative inquiry, for instance. It's a model for organizational change proposed by David Copperwriter, a psychologist, that basically has 5 steps, and you try to acknowledge the positive and then dream the possible, and then you follow certain steps. So is that a psychotechnology? I call it mindware, going back to Andy Clark's paradigm, proposal that we are cyborgs, therefore there is a lot of mindware. So that's how I play.
That makes sense.
In every session, you have different tools or technologies or mind tools or mindware, and you play with those technologies to take what Verwicki and Grossman and a group of a total of 10 psychologists define as the common model of wisdom, the consensus model of wisdom. That wisdom is perspectival metacognition. So I worked in each one of the sessions, 7 sessions, to help people cultivate perspectival metacognition around their project, and how using mindware, different tools. Appreciative inquiry is one. Gary Klein is a psychologist.
I'll throw this out. Let me throw this out there and see. So I might come, let's say I'm trying to build the UTOK circle. Okay. And I mean, we're just sort of doing that. And I'm like, okay, I might have a vision for where I want it to be in a year or 5 years or things like that, but I'm not sure exactly what frame I should bring to bear or how do I go about that or things like that. I might then, that would be somebody that maybe come to the Wisdom Project and basically give me some mind tools to increase my flexible thinking around this, to increase the way I'm viewing it, the kind of way I'm setting goals, the actions that I'm participating in. Is that a fair kind of way of thinking about it?
Yes, exactly. You start with an interview with me where I help you refine the project, because for me, it's very important that you have measurable ways of seeing that you are making progress or not.
Right. Okay.
So that's very important. Remember, I mentioned when we started the systems thinking framework, the agile framework, the lean framework, and the design framework. For me, it's very important to create a journey for the participant where they can see if they're making or not progress.
Okay.
Once the project is defined, then go into the sessions. I'm doing them so far. All the cohorts I've been doing are remote. And we work with these tools. One tool that I like, because the most important thing I haven't said is that the framework for the journey comes from John Vervaeke's Awakening from the Meaning Crisis, a series. Video series. In the video series, after I think is chapter 45, he reviews all the theories of wisdom that are out there. Not all, but most of them. And then he proposes that to cultivate wisdom, we have to aspire to cultivate wisdom. And he uses the work of a philosopher called Agnes Callard, whose work I love. I aspire to be a mother. I aspire to create this community of UTOKers. You know, so we do exercises to aspire. We go through exercises that take us on a liminal journey. You know, the Janus face God, where I can see, and John talks about that as S1, S2. You know, the self that I am right now and the self that I could be. But as Agna Kalars tell us, I never know S2 yet because I'm not a mother. I want to be a mother. I want to be the creator of the UTOKing circle, but you are not there yet. Therefore, that liminal journey, there is an invitation of humility. There is an invitation of uncertainty. There is an invitation of changing viewpoints. And there is an invitation, because the goal leads you towards it, of synthesize. And when I mention those 4 elements, those are the elements that John, with 9 other researchers on wisdom, agreed that could be used to define wisdom research. The pursuit of perspectival metacognition, defined as these 4 elements that I just listed. Intellectual humility, acceptance of ambiguity, the recognition of different perspectives, and the ability to synthesize. All of that grounded in previous experience and a moral commitment to the good. That's their motto. And that's what I'm using at the Wisdom Project. So we take that journey with a bunch of participatory technology. And I see your face because, yes, it's absolutely, you know, the project is the cultivation of is the pursuit of the good, because we want good. Your project is for good. Your UTOKing project is for good. But in the journey, we also visit the beautiful. And I could see how, when I was working, you were enjoying that.
Yes.
And we support at the Wisdom Project everything we do with all these names of all psychologists who have done all this research, like John and Gary Klein and Monica Ardelt and yourself, you know. So I like to use the example of Leonardo da Vinci, who was a scientist who pursued the truth, an artist who pursued the beautiful, and also a designer who pursued the good. So in the journey that I take people through, that's what I am pursuing. But I don't explain all these things to them. We just go with their project to have particular experiences that then they share with a lot of participatory technologies that are out there. And I think it's beautiful. Right now I'm interviewing, I have interviewed so far like 19 former participants, and I can see what they are doing. So it's really a wonderful, first time I do it outside a corporate environment. And it's just working wonders. And it also gives me, I haven't said this, but I have been a meditation teacher for more than 20 years. I teach meditation, and I teach at Beth Israel, which is a local hospital here in Boston. They have a center. They call it Center of Psychophysiological Science. And I have been with them. I'm one of the meditation leaders there. And I never had the opportunity to take my meditation teaching outside the meditation program. And because meditation is also a collection of mind wares, of mind tools, and they create wonderful effects, I include that, and that creates a really wonderful opportunity for transformation.
Wow.
I just want to say that my approach is wisdom by design. We can design ourselves, our families, our teams, our communities as for wisdom. We can incorporate in our personal life, in the life of our family, of our teams, and our communities, all the tools that allow us to cultivate wisdom. Wisdom by design. That's my strategy. But the framework that supports the Wisdom Project comes from John Vervaeke's video series, his understanding of what are the aspects of wisdom to be cultivated. I mentioned aspiration. The second one is mindfulness. The third one is open-mindedness. He came to the program, I call it active open-mindedness. So the fourth one is self-regulation. I use a lot of the work of Lisa Barrett Feldman in my work. Because I invite people to cultivate their emotional landscape. When your project is going well, the awareness of how you transform your mood into an emotional experience, or when it's not going so well, how you can, your tendencies to go into a depressed mode. So one of the mind wares or mind tools that I use is designing your emotional landscape, and the work of Lisa Barrett Feldman is presented when I talk about self-regulation. Another of the skills of the framework is intuition.
All right.
And I have a fictitious fight between Daniel Kahneman and Gary Klein, because Gary Klein is the expert on intuitive thinking, how firefighters do what they do, and Kahneman is, no, you are filled with so many cognitive. And they wrote a paper. It took them years to be able to write that paper. So I present that, and then I also present the work of another psychologist who basically says, just experiment. Robert Howard is a colleague. He used to be a colleague of John Vervaeke. So take your intuition through the scientific method. Acknowledge them, and then test them. It's so simple. Don't reject them because you don't have a pledge. So aspiration, mindfulness, open-mindedness, self-regulation, intuition, understanding, and finally, transcendence. Those are the 7 skills that constitute the framework of the Wisdom Project, that are an adaptation of what John Vervaeke presents in his video series when he tackles, at the end of his review of wisdom theories, when he tackles, okay, what is the cultivation of wisdom finally all about? And for the final skill, transformation, I also, like John recommends, I also use the work of Lori Paul, writes about transformative experiences.
Yep.
Like, I want to be a vampire, but I really don't know what to be a vampire means. So, you know, we all this game and all in a very I would say almost joyous way. Joyous.
Joyous.
Yeah. So that's the foundational program of the Wisdom Project.
Huh. And it's
so people,
people sign up, and about how many, you know, does it vary? I would imagine varies how many people are in a group, but about how many feels optimal
so far, I haven't had a group with more than 12 people.
Okay.
But I am open to more, because I have led, in Madrid once, I had 47 professors in a room for a week. And it was a rigid room, you know, like these auditoriums that are like, oh God. And you know, I'm about changing the furniture to change perspectives. So no, I can work, and I have worked with 150 professors in Central America, but then I had facilitators for every 25, 30 people. So the group can change and the design is flexible. But usually what I have done so far online since April 2022 is maximum 12 people. But
gotcha.
If there are more, I change the format. So, okay, so I'm starting more cohorts on June 23rd and 24th. People can register by just going to my website, irisstammberger.com.
We'll make sure that's on in the show notes here.
And I welcome any type of project, because the motto of the Wisdom Project is changing our world one project at a time.
Okay.
Changing our worlds one project at a time. Very simple, very local. Just improve your relationship with your mother-in-law. I remember one day I did the 3-2-1. It's one of the techniques. It comes from Gestalt psychotherapy, but it's also widely used by Ken Wilber's integral psychology group. So basically, you take the third-person point of view. Oh, he is an idiot, and then I can describe from the third point of view, third-person point of view. Third-person point of view, I can describe all the things that make him an idiot. Second step, and it's not easy. Try to have a conversation with the idiot. Sit with the idiot and have a conversation. And I discovered that guy that I was calling an idiot, it was just, he was so insecure. He was so intimidated by the whole responsibility he assigned for. And then 3-2-1-1. What is one? Step in the shoes of the idiot. Be the idiot. Nice. Sit with all that. Wow. When I did that with this particular character, my 3-2-1, I discovered that what I didn't like about him was wasted knowledge. We were on a board of an organization, and he was not listening to all the wisdom in the room, which was enormous, to all the knowledge, the experiences of the people in the room. So a name came when I did the 3-2-1, a sentence, wasted knowledge. So I had to ask myself, what is in me that is wasted knowledge that generates this strong reaction against this human being, which I do not dislike, but it just was happening. And then when I realized that wasted knowledge was a burden for me, that's when I decided to do the Wisdom Project.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I said,
wasted
knowledge.
Iris,
that's why you are reacting. Can you imagine?
Lovely.
So that's one of the tools of the whole foundational program of the Wisdom Project.
All right. That's a nice, I think that is a nice sort of summary. Hey, can you do a 3-2-1, see what you see, then talk, with who you might be talking with, and then adopt their perspective, and then reflect on whether or not you're carrying wasted knowledge. That sounds like a reasonable, process.
Yeah, and I have been talking with the participants and how they're using the tools in their day-to-day.
Yep.
And one of the tools that they keep using is the 3-2-1. But they also use a lot the body scan, which is a mindfulness technique that allows you to be aware of where you are at a particular moment. Yeah, they use the techniques, but again, the framework is my adaptation of John Vervaeke's presentation of the skills of wisdom in his video series.
Well, it's so lovely to see that those ideas then manifest in you, and then you bring them down into local change projects and orient them. And we have the principle in UTOK called the garden fractal. So the garden fractal, find your sphere of influence and bring dignity, well-being, and integrity, or whatever framing of values that you might to do that. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing, and that's beautiful. I appreciate your sharing that and disseminating it and getting the trainers trained in it. And we'll change the world, make it a wiser place, one project at a time.
Exactly. Even those who are trying to tackle those humongous problems, like Don Know, who just wrote a book about how to use design science to change the world. He's also, as I read the principles, create small and simple interventions is one of the principles. Be modest, be local, test quickly, check yourself, because we also have frames.
Totally.
Yeah.
So we definitely need to do multi-perspectival shifting with experimentation to see what's effective and realistic. Sure.
Yeah.
All right, Iris. Well, this has been lovely in terms of getting a sense of just who you are. Your kind of pretty remarkable journey across a wide variety of different engineering, human factors, human psychology, therapy domains, and that you then land into the John world, or Francis Varela and others, and then find yourself sort of like, okay, applying these principles within kind of an engineering mindset. I think it's a glorious thing, and I'm really glad that you've had some success, and I wish you the best of success. I'm really happy that you're coming to the circle and sharing some of these perspectives.
Okay, thank you very much, Gregg. It has been wonderful.
Absolutely. It's been a joy, and I look forward to continue to learn from you and you're continuing to spread wisdom around project at a time. So
Amen.
Thank you so much. All righty. Take care.